Okay, so today is really to talk about family and the caregiving piece and the dynamics we can experience and kind of moving through those dynamics. So I always like to self-disclose at first. One of the big things why this topic's so important to me is about 10 years ago, my mom had lung cancer, and there were 11 of us kids and my dad, and we're all caring for her. And if you think about 11 kids, you could probably think of a personality, and it was probably involved. So you have all kinds of people involved. You would find where the younger kids, we were taking care of my mom, but then you have the kids who are way out west and then they don't come to visit, but they're telling you how you should take care of them. And then my dad was going through struggles of being the husband and also being a caregiver, and the kids, we were experiencing that role reversal. And there's so many dynamics that come into play, because as we, the people who are caregiving, have different stresses, you guys do too. You're on a constant journey of change. And so it's trying to find a way how we can work together to reduce some of that stress. So when I think about people who are caregiving, one of the biggest facts that have come out is that caregivers have been identified as an extension of healthcare. You are that healthcare person. You are making sure that person's comfortable, your meds are taken care of, you're balancing that relationship, and then you're navigating those systems. So there's a lot of different dynamics that come into play. So you're not only having the family piece, you're also navigating the medical world. Some of the dynamics when you think about things, there's financial costs that come up, the accessibility of getting items. And with dynamics, it's about us. We're relating and interacting with people, but it doesn't always mean it's good, but it doesn't always mean it's bad. It's both together, if that makes sense. So when I think about what are the factors to consider and what happens. So from my experience, I have my own personal experience. So just talking like that role stress, and I believe that both people experience it. You are the spouse, you are the caregiver, but if you are also the spouse who is ill, it's being able to accept these changes and finding that balance. When is it time to cut off that, right now I'm just going to be your spouse for 30 minutes and here's when I'm going to be your caregiver? Because often we see people just kind of develop in both roles. And all of a sudden go into just full caregiver mode. And so we're not always seeing all of those needs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you think about in these costs, there's financial costs at time to consider. Sometimes with equipment that's needed or hiring caregivers, the caregivers aren't free if you're doing them from an agency, and finding the right fit for you when you're doing that. A big thing too, when you consider things that can come into play, is making sure you have some kind of POA or guardianship set up in advance. That's one common thing, just making sure you let people know this is what I want. This is who I will trust to make decisions when that time comes, because that can become an argumentative point for people. I've seen it in hospice. I've seen it in working with immigrants and refugees. When we don't have those in place, things get messy, and you only have a certain amount of time to get them in place before you can't set up that POA. So, when I think about more dynamics, there's attitudes. So, and what I mean by attitudes is your caregiver may have a different attitude towards healthcare and what you should be doing. And you may have an attitude to where I want to be comfortable and these are my limitations. And it's meeting each other where you're both at. So you can both work together to make sure both the needs are met. So do you guys have any questions yet? Just as I'm talking, I want to make sure this this is making sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's making sense.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going through, like you said, different dynamics at different times, with different emotions. We're all human, everybody's different. Just because we live together or we've been together for years doesn't mean that we may agree on everything,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're going through an uncharted waters. I mean,
Right.
these are uncharted waters. I mean, so it's kind of like Captain Kirk going where no man's been before. You know? Undiscovered country. So
Yeah.
things do change. Yeah, makes sense.
It definitely is. And the big thing with dynamics is just making sure you guys have that balance, is when you know setting aside time, especially in these family situations with caregiving, being like, okay, we're gonna set aside this time and we're just gonna enjoy each other. We're going to enjoy doing something, making sure you're setting times for those to allow a separation. That's one
So,
of the big.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, when you said, setting aside like 30 minutes just to be a spouse or say whoever it is, just to be with your kid,
Hmm.
do you recommend that happening daily, or how often do you think that needs to happen, or does that just depend on the family?
So it honestly does. It's kind of case by case scenario. So as when I worked with families, I'd say at least set 3 times a week where you're just doing something, whether it's lunch. And sometimes it would be a situation where you'd order in a special lunch and maybe set up the table make it
Mm-hmm.
different. If you can't get out, do something inside. um, Definitely if it's the full 24-hour caregiving all the time, I mean, I think it's good to set a time. I think it's good to do it every day, honestly. I'd say at least 3 times a week, but I think every day makes a difference because it just allows you that reconnection without having to worry about other things that are going on.
Absolutely. And then my
Yeah.
other question, which I maybe you were gonna start talking about this next, but as far as different attitudes about things, and I mean, I see that happening all the time where one person has an opinion about it and the other person has a completely different opinion. And so if that's the case, how do you suggest people go about having those conversations and making sure the person with ALS is the one making those decisions and not feeling pressures from other people?
Right. So in those situations, I can tell you one from like a professional, what I would do with a family, but also if it's just you and the family, it's really important. I encourage those who, if you are in the decision where you're on this journey and you have people caregiving for you, to make a list of these are my needs and this is how I would like it to go. Like it's all about quality of life for everybody. But number one, we've got to meet the person that's being taken care of. We've got to meet those measures. Um, a big thing that we do, especially with hospice, and it doesn't have to be particular to hospice, is we like to hold a family meeting.
Hmm.
And if the individual tells us, I'm not comfortable saying this, then one of us will step in and say, hey, we were exploring what would make Bob's life more fulfilled, quality of life, and these are issues and concerns. So we discuss each thing that he would like to happen.
Hmm.
And we will allow people to express their feelings, but it's important to remind them that while we appreciate your insight, this is Bob's life and this is the decisions he wants to make. We're not all going to make decisions that everybody's going to be on board with. We've had it where in my current position where you're working with families and the patient has made it clear that they don't want to take certain medications or they don't want IV fluids. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle for other people to accept that. And I think we all sometimes get this sense of defeat in our mind that if you don't want to do something, you're giving up. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's saying this is what's going to make my life better. And and forcing my body to do these things doesn't feel good. I think it's really important to get that family conversation. And there are times where if we don't feel comfortable verbalizing it, whether it's writing a letter or an email or someone you trust to express it for you. It's definitely tough though, because I would say even in my mom's situation, I think she would make decisions sometimes because she knew one kid would like that, but I'm not sure that's what she wanted.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that happens a lot.
It does, unfortunately, and it's just really important. I just say as soon as the journey begins, make it known these are what your needs are. So these are things you can address proactively, because it's tough when it happens in the situation.
I can relate to this only from the standpoint of my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I make a lot of the decisions based on how it's going to affect her.
Sure.
Because I feel just a little guilty that she's having to do all of this stuff because I can't do it. She has to feed our ponies in the morning.
Yeah.
I can't go outside. She says she gets to.
I know, I was going to say feeding ponies sounds like a good time.
Now cooking for you.
In January, it's not quite as good as in July. And
Sure.
But that's not. Like getting around for bed, she puts me to bed in the evening, and we've got an hour that's just stuff that has to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I often think, how is this going to influence Nancy? And I know she's trying to do things. Okay, how does Terry want this done? You see what I mean? And so, if anything, we both are a little bit that way. So maybe that's a good thing that we're thinking of the other.
Yeah, I mean, it tells me you care and love for each other. And if do you guys have conversations about this stuff to just kind of share how you're feeling so you can decide, if you're saying, hey, I feel like I'm putting a lot on you, to kind of allow that conversation.
We're pretty open with our conversations, yeah.
That's good. See, and that's the big thing is talking about it. I'm also hearing some guilt from you, which, you can't control what your body does. And I imagine your wife, Nancy, loves you quite a bit. And one of the things that they've shown is that some people, when they get to be the caregiver, there are health benefits in the way that you do feel good about being able to do this for your loved one. So it can improve your mood.
And Nancy practiced on this
Mm-hmm.
with her mother.
Okay.
So her mother died in 2017.
Yeah.
But she was here, and the only other family member lived in Tennessee. And in fact, her mother lived there for a while and then moved back here. And Nancy was the primary caregiver from her just living in, I'll say independent living, pretty much independent, to assisted living and nursing home. And Nancy, she was the caregiver.
Yeah.
Period. So, like I say, she practiced on that. But that may sound kind of joking or crude, but the fact is, she went through it.
Yeah.
Just like you went through it with your mother, and that experience is valuable to you.
Yeah.
And this was very valuable to Nancy in terms of caring for me. On the other hand, I still feel guilty about not being able to jump up and do something because I can't jump up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, it sounds like it's something out of your control and you're not responsible for, but it's hard when your mind is there, you have things you want to do, and the disease isn't allowing you, but it doesn't reflect poorly upon you.
Well, one other comment that you made that for us has been tremendously useful,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes back to 1996. My parents were killed in an automobile accident, and he told my brother where the shoebox was, and it had all the instructions, funeral arrangements.
Yeah.
My son was to sing, etc. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that set in motion my mind. Okay, so 2 years later, Nancy and I were married. Okay, this is the second marriage for us, which makes this a little more complicated because it's a blended family.
Okay.
Now, blended only after our kids were out of the house, so to speak. Okay, so we've not had any kids living with us since we've been married. But one of
Sure.
the first things we did was established wills, bought the funeral arrangements, those kinds of things. And then when I was diagnosed with ALS, we went to our financial advisor, our attorney, and the tax accountant.
Okay.
We redid things,
Mm-hmm.
and we told the kids, this is what the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, to me, I'm just reinforcing what you said,
Yeah.
to have a plan and to let those kids know.
Yeah.
And so that we're trying to be as fair as we can, so there's not an argument later on when I'm not here.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. It's especially with all the dynamics and the people that are involved, when you pre-plan that, you don't have those sides arguing, well, mom or dad would want this, or mom and dad always told me this. And then there's nothing written. I've seen families in the work I do, when I was out in the field as a hospice social worker, where you see the last few days of someone's life and people are arguing over assets or how things should be done. And so one way is to have it in that paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I concur with Terry. We've already done all that. In fact, we just left the attorney's office last week and had our wills redone because we both have 2 sets of children.
Okay.
Okay, so we've only been married 22 years, 23 years, and so we also we have all of that. We have different things that are delegated to us independently, other than jointly. So for various reasons. But anyway, moving forward, so all of that's in place. And of course, I have been proactive about putting the spreadsheet together with distributions based on timelines,
Mm-hmm.
because certain things drop off at certain years. So I'm putting those timelines together with a well-educated estimation of what that asset value will be, and also what that real value is at that time also. So help me understand, and maybe I'm as dense as a box of rocks today. I don't know. Sometimes I get that way. I find it more common recently than in the past. So where exactly in this food chain
Mm-hmm.
are you in your organization, what you do? maybe I missed that from the very beginning. I got slightly distracted for about 2.5, 3 minutes. So I apologize if you have to repeat something. So, I mean, we've talked to people about devices. We've talked to people about, like speech and mobile devices and da-da-da-da-da. We've got things lined out financially, working on the spreadsheets on distribution and a list of even down to items that I own that are specific to me that I may want to go here or there with this child or that child. And of course, soon I have open discussions about this periodically. So it's not something that's a surprise attack. And I have talked to a hospice group already to set up a baseline. So, and I know you're with Hillcrest, is that correct?
Yep. So I'm with Hillcrest Hospice. So I've been I've been with them for 3 years. I started as a hospice social worker. And then this November, I stepped up to the Director of Patient and Family Services. So for our hospice team, I supervise all of the social workers, the chaplains, the volunteers, and our bereavement department.
Okay, and I apologize. You probably said that from the get-go.
No worries.
And I apologize. Slap me with a 2x4.
Oh, no. It's Thursday at 5:30. It's no problem.
No, I think I got distracted. I actually saw something that popped up on my phone. I stay quite active in various arenas.
Yeah.
And especially what's going on nationally and globally with this theoretical pandemic. So anyway, and I caught something that caught my eye, and I was like, oh, there was no way in saying far. I didn't turn on that. But so anyway, it caught me off guard. I apologize.
Oh,
so
you're
I know where you're at. Sue went to Hillcrest.
Mm-hmm.
Her last knee surgery, she went over there for some rehab for a week.
What facility did she go?
The one on 84th Street, the newer one.
On 84th Street.
Is that
the rehab cottage in Papillion?
No, negative, in Lincoln.
Oh, Firethorn. I'm sorry. Yeah, Firethorn. That new one. Yeah.
Is that tied in with you?
It is. So how it works is there's Hillcrest, and then they have a multitude of services. So there's the facility aspect, then we have home care, and then we have hospice. And so with we also have private duty as well. So with hospice, we are not, though, necessarily connected to the facility. We do go in and provide hospice services to those in the facility, but we can do it at home, and we do it in a lot of different other locations as well.
But you're based out of Omaha, is that correct?
What?
Based out of Omaha. You are based out of
Yeah.
So can you hear me okay?
I can. Sometimes I have to, my computer,
It's me. I'm talking low today. I'm in low profile.
No, you're okay. Sometimes I'll turn up my volume, and then I don't know if there's something messes up and it goes down, so I have to return it back up.
Yeah, my battery's at about 20% right now.
Oh.
It's been a busy day since about 6:30.
Yeah, that's a long day. That's early.
It is a long day.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Oh.
Okay, well that's good. Now I'm tuned in.
Yeah. No.
My antennas are up, and I'm tuned in now. I got you.
Yeah.
All right.
And you know, I talked about hospice with ALS in the Heartland. Probably, was that a year ago, Emily? A little while ago.
Yeah, I think fall maybe, or
yeah. But I'm always here, like, if you have questions. I'm always an open resource, and I have no strings attached. I just like everybody to be informed, and if you have questions or needs, to answer them without feeling the pressure to go any which way. It's all about quality of life. And family dynamics are one of them too. We got to
That's
figure
right.
out a way we all work together.
So when you were talking about dynamics and you're talking about, the caregivers need a break.
Yeah.
And Sue, I was talking to her because I'm looking at some potentially, in fact, if Lord willing and the creek don't rise and the cost is good, I'm looking at some security cameras.
Okay.
So that she can remote in from a phone or an iPad, and that'll be zeroed in on me, and then the front door, back door, and then some other alert devices in case the house is on fire or something, and she's awake. But and she's like, well, no, I'll always be there. And I'm like, well, bullfrog, you're not always going to be there. I don't want you here all the time.
Yeah.
I want you to get out, go to the movie, go out to have dinner or lunch with a girlfriend. So what kind of stuff is available through an organization such as yourself? What's available for someone that maybe if she didn't feel comfortable doing that? So like house sitting or something of sort like that. Is there anything like that available?
So do you mean probably, I'm guessing not to the hospice piece yet. You're asking for like right now?
Yeah, like a home care. I guess
Yeah.
it would be like home care.
So we do have home care. In order to qualify for home care, there's a couple measurements. You'd have to have a doctor write an order, and then they would do an assessment. But we do have home care out in Lincoln. Those are a couple visits a week. And it kind of just depends on what your needs are, what the doctor would determine. So if it's a nurse to come out and check stuff or a bath aide to come help. We don't have a ton of those caregivers out in
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. Out in Lincoln yet. For the hospice piece, just to give you an idea, because with hospice it allows a little bit more. Some of the things that we've done is you can do respites, and there's actually two with the state of Nebraska. If you're ever finding, hey, I really want her to get out, it's called the Lifetime Respite Grant that you can apply for, and you can usually what they do is give you $1,000 and allow you to pick who you'd like to bring someone in to come be with you for a few hours, so your wife would then feel comfortable to get out.
Okay, and then the only time I would ever utilize that type of service is if I'm immobilized and I'm in bed. I mean, outside of that, if I'm able to get around and somewhat walk and, crawl to a door or something, I'll be fine by myself.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I feel comfortable in that. Of course, I say that now. But that's the only thing. I mean, I would have to be pretty much hunkered down to a point where I couldn't do anything. And but I'd want her to be able to get out and get away from all of it for a while.
Sure.
At least once a week, or possibly even twice. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
I mean, 24/7, 365 is a long time.
Well, and we all have to engage in self-care. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of other people. So it's important.
I'd go stir crazy. I'd go nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you put the shoe on the other foot.
Yeah.
I mean, geez. I mean, I don't care how much you love somebody. It's a hard thing. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, and be honest about it.
Yeah. And I think
honest with yourself.
And you may not know the satisfaction she's getting from it either. It's hard to tell sometimes, those balances, but I imagine she loves you, and this is part of her way to show her love for you.
I understand that, but it becomes a full-time job.
Yeah.
And nobody likes a full-time job 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my personality.
No, yeah,
I'll
I
definitely
hear
not.
it.
And I think this comes up constantly where you know, we want to maintain some kind of normalcy where your loved one isn't 24 hours all day, every day, and then getting to a place of burnout, you know, like you're talking about, Rick. I mean, everyone kind of has that point of needing some space or needing their friends or their family or whatever that may be. And I think this is a perfect point to bring up and maybe ask Monica like where her head is on this, because here Terry said he feels guilt because Nancy has to, you know, help with things, and then Rick's like kind of sounds like guilt too, like he doesn't want her staying home all the time. So there's a lot of guilt on both ends, and we definitely see people at all stages showing guilt, right? And how to kind of figure out where that balance is, and how to say to your loved one in a kind, you know, caring way, so we don't get defensive, which is difficult. You know, I don't know if you have some suggestions of how to bring that up in a kind, caring way.
Yeah. You know, it's tough. So I can give some suggestions. Every personalities are so different. So I may think this is a kind statement, but I don't know their personality. So they may as interpret it as, well, don't say that to me. But one of the most effective things I found with families is usually just starting with, I love you and thank you for everything you've done. I really appreciate it. And I know you're about making sure I'm happy, and it would really make me happy if I saw you get out to be with friends. Just kind of to slowly sneak it in. Not everybody responds to that statement well, but if they're focused on making sure you're happy and safe, just saying, oh, it really make me happy too, to know that you're doing something. I don't know that you would want to start off saying, well, I need to know you're taking care of yourself, because some people can take that offensive. Well, I am. I'm sleeping, I'm waking up, I'm watching you. But just saying, I want to see, it makes me really happy to, you know, have you go out with friends and then get to hear about what you guys did and how you enjoyed it. Really going from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And
my trip to California for Sue to go see her girlfriends.
Yeah.
I see her girl for a long weekend. There you go.
And you know, you could say, I'd love to live through you vicariously and see pictures of California and see what you're doing. Like, that would be great.
There you go.
Yeah. And you know, something too, sometimes people get pretty fixed that they don't want to get out. And we've found that. So something I found really good for couples, if they are home and they're pretty set on not leaving, is virtual reality. So we started a virtual reality program, and it's pretty cool. So we had someone who, you know, the wife was stressed out at home, but she wanted to go through her hometown of Germany. So, you know, you gave them the goggles, and she spent an hour on there. She was able to find the exact house she lived in. Like, it felt like you were walking along the streets. Yeah.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. I mean,
how do you put that?
What?
Go ahead. Oh, that's cool. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it depends on the quality. So, like, the ones we use for our program are probably like $700 a piece, but you can get virtual reality glasses now. I've seen them even for $40 if you're just looking for that basic pair. But if people are not set on getting out of the house, then it's saying, okay, well, then we've got to find the separations at home.
So I'm familiar with what you're talking about. So anyway, and those are cool. Those are cool glasses. I mean, whatever, the thing you put on. And
well, they suck you in.
Yeah. But how did you get the media for her location where she grew up at?
So you can go onto Google Maps, and it's it's connected with the virtual reality, and you can put in the address, and so Google Maps has pictures of everything now from their satellite. So you can put in your, yep.
So you just Bluetooth it? So is it like a Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi thing with the?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi, so you'd have to have the internet to connect it, but then you.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just trying to see how it picks up the information from Google Maps when you have the virtual hardware on.
Yep, so when you put it on, you get a little remote and you make a couple clicks and then it'll take you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I thought you always had to use the media that they gave you.
No, not now. If you can get onto the internet and you can Google it, you can go there. Any video you want, you can make virtual.
No way.
Yeah.
So
That's
I never
incredible.
really got into that stuff, but my stepson's got it, and he brought it over, and geez, we were in the ocean, we were this, we were that, and da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And that was dandy. But I thought, you know what? I know it's not real. I want to see something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got kind of bored with it.
Sure.
So I thought, well, I'm not going to, I think he paid $450 for the glasses or whatever it is, hardware. But I thought, I ain't going to waste my money on that. But I didn't realize you could just get on the internet with it and you could just go ahead and go somewhere.
Yep. As long as you Google it, because we had another gentleman who wanted to go fishing, but at that point he wasn't able to. But you could find, if you wanted, we would Google like a lake near his house where maybe someone had done some film work and where you could see someone fishing, and he went fishing that way. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, whatever you can find on the internet, generally you can make it a reality.
That's unreal. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Terry? Where would you want to go?
That sounds a little beyond me.
Oh, come on, Terry. Come on, go into the wild side, buddy. Go off the edge, Terry. Go off the edge. Cross the threshold.
Yeah, Nancy's saying, for me, it's going off the edge with my involvement yet at the university and working on beef cattle projects, and so.
Well, that's good.
So it's not. Well, maybe it's virtual. I mean, we're working on it real time. So.
Yeah.
And I get to work with 3 or 4 former students of mine that are on the faculty now, and some graduate students, and so that's what keeps me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could visit their ranches.
You could.
You could visit their ranches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something. I don't know. What the heck? It sometimes beats sitting around a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes virtual reality isn't necessarily your go-to. One of my other favorite things that I find really good for just stress relief or bonding with your loved one is music therapy. So just if you enjoy certain kinds of music, so we use Emily Wadhams for us, but you tell her the kind of music she likes and she can play it and share it with families. Just having some time to where it's like, we're just gonna sit together and listen to the music. It's a pretty neat experience. I won't lie, at first I was like, it's not gonna do anything for me. Like, what are you talking about? And she did it with our team, just saying, give me some songs, and it was really interesting how to listen to it. It just kind of felt like, okay, everything is leaving my body right now. Like, I'm only hearing the music.
I totally agree with you about music.
Yeah.
I think that's one of God's greatest gifts for us.
Yeah.
I sang in a gospel quartet from 1976 until a year ago. And the last 6, 7, 8 years, Nancy had sung with us. And most of that time, one of my sons had been singing with us. And so Nancy and I have a recording of us practicing.
Oh,
So we can most Sundays we'll play some of that recording and sing along with some of those specific songs. And she says after dinner, after she's made dinner. But that music is just tremendous for
yeah.
us. It's a great outlet. And again, as you were discussing, something that we do together.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of in a way taking a break from reality. You guys are reliving that moment in a while. You're enjoying that singing, but you can also think of that time it happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
we think so much of the people that were at the ambassador at the time and used to come to hear us. And now we wonder what in the world has happened to them. You know,
Yeah.
it's something that it's great to think of the time when we went there, but it's also rather sad with the times the way they are.
It's kind of a catch-22. It's nice to think of those memories, but then it makes you wonder, well, what's going on now?
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, just talking with you guys, you're already kind of you're doing some of those things that really are going to help you through this journey by taking that time, by communicating. That's important. I think if the biggest thing to come out of today would just is communicating what your needs are in a way that you feel you can express yourself and meeting each other where they're at, but at the same time being like, this is what I need. And I know you're going to have needs too, because we're engaging in this journey. What are things we enjoy and what are things we need apart? We need alone time.
You mean quilting time?
Quilting.
We work at that, and so when the caregiver is here in the morning, then we encourage Nancy to do things like go upstairs and sew on quilts. Our 19th great grandchild is on the way here in another month, and so she's hard at work at that quilt.
Oh, that's exciting.
But that's the good thing for her,
Right.
and we recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be able to continue to do that so that she's not caring for me for 2-3 hours in the morning and is doing the things like that. Yes.
And I think that's important for you guys to remember too. You know, while you may feel some guilt that they're having to do this, well, look, you're still caring for them too by giving them those opportunities for that time. So you are doing, I think we all do more than we realize. And so in those situations, to hold on to that when we're feeling down about, well, I feel so guilty they're having to do all of this. Well, whatever I can do within my control, I'm offering those opportunities.
Yeah, this has been a really great discussion. You know, we really appreciate you coming today and just being willing to talk and answer questions, and it's great.
Yeah. No, anytime. If you ever have questions, Emily has my information. I don't mind. I just always ask, if you contact me, please say your name first. So, but yeah.
Great. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording and then we'll say our goodbyes.
Okay.